You're looking at a photograph from 1890. Asterisk, two children stand side by side, fixed in the strange stillness of early photography. Asterisk, a girl, about 9 years old, a younger boy, maybe 5. They're holding hands. Asterisk, at first glance. It looks harmless, one of those stiff Victorian portraits. A quiet moment of sibling affection, frozen in time. The girl in a simple dark dress. The boy in plain clothes. A blank backdrop behind them. Nothing out of the ordinary. Asterisk, except the photograph. Itself is barely hanging on to existence. Asterisk, the paper is. Warped with water stains. Asterisk, the image is faded almost to ghosts. Asterisk, foxing spots scatter across the surface like mold. Asterisk, 134 years have eaten into every inch. Asterisk, by 2023. It should have been nothing more than a ruined relic. Asterisk, but when a photograph restoration specialist in Vermont digitally enhanced this image for a routine family history project, the past did not stay quiet. Asterisk, it started screaming. Asterisk, because what she found in that image wasn't proof of sibling love. It was evidence of captivity. It was not a portrait of two children posing. Asterisk. This was a record of a kidnapped girl, and the little boy she was forced to pretend was her brother. Asterisk. And if you want to know how a simple, forgotten family photograph from 1890 turned into evidence in one of the most disturbing child abduction cases of the 19th century. Asterisk. If you want to know what the restoration revealed about these children's fate. Asterisk, you'll need to follow this story all the way down into the dark. It began in August 2023 in Burlington, Vermont. Asterisk, photograph conservator Emily Richardson was sitting in her studio when a worn cardboard box arrived from a new client, David Hendress. His elderly aunt had recently passed away, and while cleaning out her house, he found a stack of Victorian-era family photographs. He wanted them restored, preserved, and, if possible, identified. Asterisk, most of them were exactly what Emily expected. Asterisk, serious-faced men with stiff collars, women in heavy dresses, wedding portraits. Asterisk, stiff family groups frozen in that grim Victorian seriousness, but one photograph felt wrong the moment she pulled it out. Two children. Asterisk, a girl. A boy. Asterisk, standing in front of what looked like a plane. Dark backdrop. Asterisk, the girl about 9 wore a simple dark dress. Not particularly fancy. Not particularly poor. Asterisk, the boy around 5 wore simple clothing. His small hands swallowed by hers. They were holding hands. There was nothing in their clothes that screamed wealth or poverty. Nothing in the framing that screamed anything at all. Until Emily turned the photograph over. In faint, almost vanished pencil, someone had written Sarah and Thomas, 1890. Asterisk, may God have mercy on their souls. Asterisk, Emily frowned. That wasn't a normal caption. No. To Aunt so-and-so. No. Christmas 1890. No family surname, just 2 first names, a date, and a prayer for mercy. When she called David to ask if he knew who they were, his answer only deepened the unease. Asterisk, he had never heard of any Sarah or Thomas in his family line. Asterisk, no. Children by those names in his aunt's genealogy. Notes. No record of siblings who died young. No mention of a tragedy that might explain such a caption. Asterisk on paper. Sarah and Thomas did not exist. Asterisk, but someone in David's family had kept this photograph and had written that line on the back. Emily began the restoration. Asterisk, the photograph was in awful condition. Severe water damage had washed out whole sections. The image was extremely faded. Asterisk, heavy foxing it into their faces and clothes. Asterisk, deep tears and creases cut through the children's bodies. Asterisk. It was the kind of job that took weeks careful scanning, layer by layer digital cleaning, slow contrast adjustments, selective sharpening, bringing shapes out of what looked like gray fog. Asterisk, but as the image slowly came back to life, the wrongness became clear. The first thing she noticed was their faces. Victorian children rarely smiled for the camera. It wasn't the custom. And long exposure times made holding a grin difficult. Emily had seen hundreds of stern, expressionless child portraits. This was different. The girl's face, Sarah, according to the back, wasn't neutral. It held a kind of frozen terror Emily recognized from another category of images entirely. Old crime photographs. Mugshots of battered women. Victims photographed for court records. People who had been hurt. Sarah had that same look. Her eyes seemed just a little too wide. Her jaw a little too rigid. Her entire face looked caught between fear and endurance. Asterisk, the second thing Emily noticed was the way they were holding. Hands, asterisk, at a glance. It could pass for a protective older sister holding a little brother. But when Emily zoomed in, the illusion fell apart. Sarah's hand wasn't gently holding the boy's. Her fingers were wrapped tightly around his small hand. Asterisk, her knuckles looked tense, almost whitened. Asterisk, in the boy. He wasn't leaning into her or standing comfortably. His body language suggested something else. A child being held in place. Not standing there by choice. This wasn't an affectionate hand-holding. It looked like restraint. The third detail was what made Emily's blood go cold. Asterisk. She had been working primarily on the children's faces and clothing, but eventually she turned her tools on the background, the dark, blurred area behind them that had looked like a typical studio backdrop. Asterisk, layer by layer. She removed discoloration, corrected exposure, deepened shadows, and sharpened edges. That was when she realized it wasn't a backdrop at all. It was a wall, not a painted canvas, not a photographer's curtain, a real wall with texture stone or old brick. And hanging from that wall, half swallowed by a century of damage, were shapes that made immediate, sickening sense as soon as they cleared into focus. Chains, iron chains, mounted into the wall, asterisk hanging, down roughly 3 to 4 feet, asterisk positioned, at a height that would line up with a standing child's. Wrists. Emily stared at the screen. The children stood in front of the chains. The chains weren't props, asterisk. They were hardware, restraints, whatever this room was. It wasn't a studio. It was a cell. Emily stopped working. She sat in silence, staring at the enhanced image, her heart pounding. She had seen tragic images, unsettling images, but this was different. This wasn't history in the abstract. This was a crime scene. Captured in full Victorian clarity, disguised as an innocent family portrait and hidden away in an attic for more than a century. The next thing she did was simple. She picked up her phone, she called David, and then, as the full implications sank in, she called the police. Asterisk, because this wasn't just a damaged old photograph anymore. It was evidence. And Sarah and Thomas, whoever they really were about to drag the year 1890 back into the present. Asterisk. When Emily told David what she had discovered in the photograph, he didn't believe her at first. Asterisk chains. A basement. Captive children. Asterisk, it sounded impossible. Something twisted. Something too dark to have been hiding in his aunt's attic for decades. Asterisk, but Emily's voice carried a quiet certainty. The kind that comes only from someone who knows exactly what she's looking at. Asterisk. David drove to her studio immediately. Asterisk, when he saw the enhanced image with his own eyes. He didn't speak. He didn't look away. He just went pale, and then he remembered something. A small bundle of old newspaper clippings that had been tucked into the same box as the photograph clippings he'd dismissed as random scraps from his aunt's hoarding habits. Asterisk. He hadn't even read them. Asterisk. He rushed home, dug through the box, and found the little envelope. Inside were 3 brittle, yellowed clippings from the Burlington Daily News, all from the fall of 1890. Asterisk when he laid them out. The pieces of the forgotten story began to rearrange themselves into something horrifyingly clear. The first clipping. September 14th, 1890, local girl, missing 9-year-old. Sarah Mitchell vanished from her home yesterday evening. Family desperate for information. Sarah Mitchell. The same name written on the back of the Photograph. Asterisk. The article described a small girl. Brown hair, dark eyes, last seen playing in her front yard before supper. No witnesses. No clues. Just gone. Asterisk. The second clipping. October 3rd, 1890. Missing girl's mother dies of grief. Elizabeth. Mitchell passes away 3 weeks after daughter's disappearance. Asterisk. The small article was clinical, but the heartbreak bled through the printed words. Sarah's mother had begged the police every day to keep searching, and every day they told her there was nothing more they could do. Asterisk. 3 weeks without answers had broken her. She died believing her daughter would never be found. Asterisk. The third clipping. November 21st, 1890. Mysterious deaths in Woodstock. 2 children found dead in an abandoned house. Identities unknown. Girl approximately 9 or 10. Asterisk. A boy approximately 5 or 6. Asterisk. Both dead of starvation and exposure. Asterisk. Both showing signs of severe neglect. Asterisk. The article ended with a single line. Asterisk. Investigation ongoing. Asterisk. But history showed that nothing had ever truly been investigated. David felt sick. Asterisk. His Aunt Margaret had been born in 1888, just 2 years before all this happened. She would have been too young to understand the events, but her mother, David's great-grandmother, had lived through it. She had saved these clippings for a reason. She had saved the photograph for a reason. Asterisk. She had kept them hidden, not displayed. Not spoken of, hidden. Asterisk. As Emily and David pieced the fragments together, the outline of a story began to form. A story that had once shocked Vermont, then quietly slipped into silence. A case that had been buried under indifference, corruption, and time. They needed answers. So they took the photograph and the clippings to someone who might understand the deeper context. Dr. Catherine Morris, a historian at the University of Asterisk. Vermont, who specialized in Victorian-era crime. Asterisk. Within a week, Dr. Morris had access to sealed archives. Asterisk. She found the original police file. Asterisk. The witness statements. The abandoned leads. The forgotten interviews. Asterisk. And what she found there was worse than anyone expected. Because the story of Sarah Mitchell wasn't just a tragedy. It was a failure. A cover dash up dot and the beginning of something much darker lurking. Beneath the surface of Vermont's respectable society. Asterisk. The photograph wasn't simply an artifact. It was evidence, the only surviving image of Sarah Mitchell, and the mysterious little boy she died trying to protect. A photograph taken by the man who had abducted them, a photograph taken as a trophy, when Dr. Catherine Morris examined the restored photograph. She immediately called in another expert doctor, James Patterson, a forensic psychologist who specialized in analyzing emotional markers in historical photographs and crime evidence. Emily sent him the high-resolution restoration. He didn't need long. The moment he saw the children's faces, he exhaled sharply and whispered, Asterisk. This is not a portrait. Asterisk. This is evidence of trauma. Sarah's face. The girl who was trying to speak asterisk Victorian children rarely smiled in photographs. Long exposure times and cultural norms made it common for them to appear serious, stiff, expressionless. But Sarah Mitchell's expression defied every rule of Victorian portraiture. Her fear was unmistakable. Her eyes. Dr. Patterson zoomed in until the pixels blurred, studying the whites around her irises. Asterisk. Her eyes were open too wide, far beyond the neutral Victorian pose. Asterisk. The whites of her eyes showed above and below the irises, a classic physiological marker of fear. Asterisk. Her pupils appeared dilated. Even under bright photographic lighting. Asterisk. Pupil dilation under bright light. Dr. Patterson explained. Asterisk means one thing: extreme, sustained stress. But the most chilling detail was her gaze. Sarah wasn't looking at the camera. Asterisk. She was looking slightly to the left, directly toward the man operating it, with a look Dr. Patterson described as a silent plea, desperation, a child begging for help with her eyes. her eyebrows raised and drawn inward asterisk, creating deep vertical creases between them asterisk. This was the universal human expression of fear and distress, the same expression seen in victims who expect immediate harm. Her mouth, her lips were pressed together so tightly that asterisk they appeared pale. Almost like the corners were pulled downward. Her jaw muscles were visibly clenched. Asterisk shadows formed beneath her cheekbones from the sheer tension asterisk. This wasn't a child simply posing. This was a child trying not to cry. Her body asterisk, she looked gaunt, hollow-faced, fragile. Her cheeks were sunken. Her eyes too large for her thin face. Asterisk, she was starving. She was terrified. She had been suffering for weeks, maybe months. Asterisk. This child, Dr. Patterson said, asterisk, was living in a state of constant terror. The reflection in Sarah's eyes, asterisk, Emily, had done something few restorers ever attempt. She magnified the catchlights in Sarah's pupils. Asterisk, and there, faint but unmistakable, was the outline of the photographer. A man, tall, standing straight, holding something long and thin in his right hand. A rod, a cane, an implement of punishment. Asterisk, the children weren't posing willingly. They were posing under threat. This was the moment. Emily realized, asterisk, the photographer was their captor. This photograph was his trophy. Thomas, the boy who had already shut down if Sarah's face showed fear. The boy's face showed something even more disturbing. His expression wasn't scared. It was empty. The boy's eyes vacant, unfocused, staring past the camera, looking at nothing, seeing nothing. His expression mouth slightly open asterisk. Face completely expressionless. No tension, no reaction, no presence, Dr. Patterson identified it instantly. Asterisk, severe dissociation. This boy was far beyond fear. His mind had retreated somewhere unreachable. Asterisk. This was learned helplessness. The psychological collapse that happens when a child is abused so long that he stops resisting, stops reacting, stops feeling. He's not in this photograph, Dr. Patterson said quietly. He's gone somewhere inside himself to survive. His physical condition, he looked worse than Sarah. Skeletal cheeks hollow. Eyes, loose skin, the unmistakable signs of starvation, asterisk, ligature. Marks on his wrists and neck, faint bruising along his jaw, clothing that was dirty. Torn, and far too large asterisk, he was fading from life, even as the shutters snapped. The hands, their hands told a story the faces dared not speak. Sarah wasn't gently holding Thomas's hand. She was gripping it hard like a child trying to reassure someone younger. Stay with me. Don't fall. Don't let go. Asterisk, meanwhile, Thomas's hand hung limp in hers. He wasn't holding back. He had nothing left. The photograph was a message, but not the one. Anyone thought this wasn't an innocent portrait. It wasn't a family memento dot. It wasn't a studio shoot. It was a moment stolen by evil. A moment staged by a man who knew exactly what he was doing. A man who took pride in his captives. A man who wanted to freeze their suffering in time. The photograph wasn't taken for memory. It was taken for ownership. It was taken for pleasure. It was taken because the abductor wanted to preserve the image of what he controlled. And now, 133 years later, that image was speaking louder than the man ever intended. Asterisk, Emily had restored thousands of photographs' weddings. Portraits, war images, crime scenes. She had seen violence frozen in silver nitrate before. Asterisk, but nothing prepared her for what emerged when she enhanced the background behind Sarah and the boy. Asterisk, because at first it looked like a typical Victorian studio backdrop. Dark, plain, slightly blurred. Asterisk, but the more Emily cleaned the damage, the more the illusion fell apart. Asterisk, what surfaced from beneath. 134 years of stains and fading was not a backdrop at all. Asterisk, it was a room. A real room. A room that should never have held children. A wall that was never meant to be seen, asterisk, as Emily deepened contrast and corrected the water fading. The texture of the background sharpened. It wasn't cloth. It wasn't paint. It was stone. Cold, rough stone, or brick, irregular, harsh. Oh, a basement wall. A cellar wall, dot asterisk, and mounted midway up that wall were shapes that made. Emily freeze, mid-click. Iron restraints. Chains. Asterisk dark. Metal links bolted into the stone with heavy brackets, hanging 3 to 4 feet down, exactly the height to restrain a child's arms. The children had been placed directly in front of them. It was as if someone had taken them out of the restraints, set them neatly for a photograph, and then placed them back afterward. The chains weren't props. They weren't decorative. They were functional. They were tools. Signs of use. Emily magnified the chains. They were worn rubbed dark where hands had gripped, rusted in patches sagging from weight, and repeated movement. These chains had held living bodies over and over. For days, for weeks, the metal remembered what the world had forgotten. Asterisk. The floor beneath the chains. Asterisk. When she lightened the shadows on the basement floor, more emerged. Dark stains. Irregular blots. Asterisk patches where stone or wood had been discolored. Dr. Morris later described them as consistent with human presence, consistent with bodily fluids, consistent with captivity. It wasn't just a place where the children had stood. It was a place where they had been kept. The room itself. Asterisk. As Emily restored more of the background, the room slowly revealed its nature. It was small, much smaller than it had initially appeared. The walls were rough, the ceiling low. The air must have been damp. Cold, stale, asterisk high on the left side of the wall. Emily uncovered the faint outline of a small window, one of those ground-level basement windows. But something was wrong. It was covered, blocked. No light entered the room except the photographer's artificial lamps. This wasn't a living space. It was a cell, the bedding asterisk in the back left corner of the image barely visible beneath. Stains and degradation lay a shape that shouldn't have been there. A thin mattress, or a pile of straw, flattened, dirty. Discolored. The kind of bedding used when someone is kept in a basement for days or weeks. Not for comfort, but survival. A child's prison bed. The bucket near the children's feet. Emily found something else, a small metal object. Round, dented, partially hidden by shadows. A bucket. A chamber pot. Asterisk. Meaning the children were not allowed to leave the room even for basic human needs. They lived here. They ate here. If they ate at all, they slept here. They suffered here. This room was not a temporary place. It was their world. The photograph was not an accident. Asterisk. Dr. Morris consulted photography historians. Their analysis was chilling. Asterisk. The photograph had been taken with professional equipment, proper staged lighting, careful posing, controlled exposure, deliberate composition. This was not panic documentation. It wasn't evidence for police. It wasn't rushed. It was artistic, which meant the abductor set up professional lighting in a basement, arranged 2 starving, abused children, positioned them carefully in front of chains, made them hold hands, asterisk, threatened them to stay still, asterisk, and took the photograph for his own satisfaction, asterisk. And when Emily zoomed into Sarah's eyes and saw the reflection of the tall man holding a rod, the truth was undeniable. Asterisk. The man behind the camera was the man who kept them chained. This wasn't a family photo. It was a trophy, a souvenir of ownership, a record of suffering captured by the one who inflicted it. This photograph had been hidden for 133 years because it was never meant to be found. Asterisk, but now had resurfaced, carrying its truth with it. Asterisk. Sarah. Asterisk. Asterisk. Thomas, 2 children who lived their final days in a basement cell. 2 children who were photographed by the man who killed them. 2 children whose only surviving voices were frozen in a single image. An image that was finally speaking. With the photograph restored and the newspaper clippings laid out, Dr. Catherine Morris went deeper. Asterisk. She accessed the sealed archives of the Vermont State Records, requested the original police files, and began piecing together the official account of Sarah Mitchell's disappearance. Asterisk. What she discovered wasn't merely incompetence. It was corruption, willful negligence, intentional blindness, a child stolen in a city that looked away. The abduction of Sarah Mitchell, asterisk, on September 12, 1890. 9-year-old Sarah Mitchell vanished from her front yard in Burlington, Vermont. It was late afternoon. Children were playing. Sunlight still stretched across the houses. Sarah's mother, Elizabeth, called her in for supper around 4 p.m. Asterisk, but when she stepped outside, Sarah was gone. No scream. No footprints. Asterisk. No torn dress. No sign of a struggle. It was as if the earth had swallowed her. Asterisk. Neighbors searched the immediate streets. Relatives combed nearby woods. Her mother notified police immediately. Asterisk. But the man assigned to the case, Detective Robert Carrington, age 52, treated it as an inconvenience, not an emergency. A detective who chose to do nothing. Asterisk. Dr. Morris read through Carrington's handwritten report from 1890. Asterisk. It was shockingly thin. He interviewed 3 neighbors. He checked the train station once. He sent no officers door to door. He never followed up on tips. He conducted no extended search. After 2 weeks, he closed the active investigation. Asterisk. His official conclusion. Asterisk. The girl likely drowned in Lake Champlain or ran away. Elizabeth Mitchell begged to look again. She told him Sarah was obedient, responsible, timid. She would never run away. She was terrified of water. Asterisk. Carrington shrugged and told her to accept that the girl is gone. Asterisk. 3 weeks later, Elizabeth Mitchell died. The official cause was pneumonia. Family members called it what it truly was. Asterisk. Grief. Hopelessness. A broken heart. Asterisk. The city buried Sarah's mother, while Sarah herself was still alive, chained in a stranger's basement. The suspect everyone ignored. Asterisk. In the back of the police file, Dr. Morris found something shocking. A suspect report that had never been followed up. Asterisk. Multiple neighbors had seen a strange man lurking in the area the day Sarah disappeared. Tall, well-dressed. Asterisk. Around 45 to 55 years old. Asterisk. Carrying a leather case, possibly camera equipment. Driving a small wagon, watching children as they played. Asterisk. 1. Witness even wrote down the wagon's identification number and gave it to the police. Detective Carrington logged it, and then did nothing. Asterisk. He never traced the wagon, identified the owner. Asterisk. Interviewed the man, checked travel routes, questioned stable workers, followed up with neighbors. He simply ignored it. Asterisk. Why? Asterisk. The answer lay in a separate archive. The Burlington Social Register, 1890. The wagon belonged to Harold Pettin. Asterisk. Age 51, wealthy businessman, amateur photographer, council member, police department donor. Asterisk. Friend and business associate of Detective Robert Carrington. Carrington didn't miss the lead. He buried it. 2 months later, a discovery no one could ignore. Asterisk. On November 20th, 1890. 2 hunters in Woodstock, Vermont, miles away from Burlington, noticed an abandoned house deep in the woods. Asterisk. Inside its basement, they found asterisk. A girl around 9, or a boy around 5 or 6, both dead, both starved, both showing signs of prolonged restraint and abuse. Asterisk. Both with ligature marks around wrists and ankles, both emaciated, both left in the cold to die. Asterisk. The boy was never identified. He became known only as Unknown Child, Woodstock, 1890. Asterisk. The girl was later confirmed as Sarah Mitchell by a distinctive birthmark her mother had described. Her father was dead. Her mother was dead. Asterisk. No one lived to claim her body except distant relatives. Pettin walks free. Asterisk. When police traced the abandoned property's ownership, they discovered it had been purchased 6 months earlier by someone using a false name. Asterisk. The buyer? Harold Pettin. But did the police arrest him? No. Did they publicly question him? Asterisk. No. Asterisk. Did they search his home? No. Why? Asterisk. Because the man in charge of the murder investigation was Detective Carrington, the same detective who protected Pettin when Sarah first vanished. Asterisk. Carrington declared there was insufficient evidence to link Pettin to the deaths. Case closed. Death by unknown perpetrator. A killer dies. A respected man. Asterisk. Harold Pettin died peacefully in his bed in 1903. Praised in the local newspaper as asterisk. A respected businessman, a civic leader, a patron of the arts. Asterisk. A generous donor, a beloved community figure. He never faced justice. Not for Sarah, not for the boy, not for anyone else, because he wasn't just a predator. He was protected, shielded by wealth. status, and a corrupt friend in the police department who ensured that the truth disappeared as surely as the children did. Asterisk for most people in 1890. Harold Petton was a respected man, a businessman, a council member, patron of local photography. Asterisk a friend to the police. Asterisk, but when Dr. Catherine Morris dug deeper into sealed records documents unopened for more than a century, she uncovered something far darker. Asterisk, Harold Petton was not acting alone. Asterisk, he was part of an underground network of wealthy men who believed they were untouchable, men who traded in children, men who hid behind wealth, class, and social respectability, a society that called itself something sickeningly polite, the collectors. The secret files asterisk, Dr. Morris found fragments scattered across old private correspondences, coded advertisements, and sealed police notes that mentioned a group of prominent men throughout the Northeast. Asterisk, men who asterisk communicated through coded newspaper ads, exchanged letters using false names, traded photographs of abducted children asterisk, visited each other's secluded properties, shared collections as if discussing rare artifacts. The men were doctors, attorneys, businessmen, politicians, men with influence and money, men who could silence witnesses, bury evidence, and manipulate law enforcement. These were not drifters or outcasts. They were pillars of society. Why the photograph was taken asterisk Victorian photography was time-consuming, expensive, deliberate. Nothing about this photograph was accidental. Dr. Morris and Emily pieced together the real purpose. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It was a trophy, a status symbol, a trade image. Asterisk, asterisk. The photograph wasn't for Petton's personal pleasure alone. It was meant to be sent to other collectors. Asterisk evidence Petton could display to prove he had acquired new children. He had kept them alive long enough to train. He controlled them, could pose them, he could starve them, he could restrain them, asterisk. He could make them obey under threat, the notation on the back. Sarah and Thomas, 1890. May God have mercy on their souls. It wasn't Petton's handwriting, it was added later by someone horrified by what they saw. Petton didn't show mercy. He showed pride. Carbon prints? The collector's currency asterisk Dr. Morris discovered. NCEs indicating Petton had used carbon printing, a high-quality, durable photographic process that allowed multiple copies to be made. Carbon prints do not fade. They do not discolor. They survive fire, water, age, perfect for distributing images. Asterisk perfect for trading them. Perfect for preserving proof of possession. Petton had created multiple copies of Sarah and the boy. Copies meant for other collectors. Copies meant to show off his acquisition. Copies meant to secure his standing within their hidden circle. This wasn't a single photo. It was a broadcast of evil. Asterisk. The boy, Thomas, asterisk. The boy beside Sarah was never identified in official records. He had no name in the archives. Asterisk, but collectors often gave their victims false names. Names used in correspondence. Labels. Entries in their sick catalogs. Asterisk. Thomas may have been the name Petton used when trading information about the boy. Asterisk, Dr. Morris found hints in coded correspondences suggesting Petton had taken the boy first, months before Sarah, which means he may have been held longer asterisk. He may have been starved longer, his dissociation was deeper, his soul might have cracked. Long before Sarah arrived asterisk, by the time the photograph was taken, Thomas had already disappeared inside himself. The purpose of the photograph asterisk, Dr. Patterson explained why these children were posed hand in hand, asterisk, 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 to present them as a pair, asterisk, a match set, asterisk, a double acquisition, asterisk, 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 collectors traded sets. The same way art dealers traded matching paintings. It was sick. It was cold. It was calculated. The chains behind them weren't an accident either. Asterisk. They were framed perfectly in the photograph's composition, enough to be visible, enough to signify control, but faint enough to be dismissed by an untrained eye. Asterisk to another collector. The message would be unmistakable. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I have full control. They can be restrained. They can be posed. Asterisk, they're mine. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The photograph was meant to travel by analyzing the style, print method, and materials. Photography. Historians confirmed this was not a one-off portrait. This was a distributed image. Asterisk. It was meant to be shared. Asterisk. It was meant to prove Pettin's membership in the network. Asterisk. And if Pettin created multiple copies of this image, asterisk, the horrifying truth follows. Asterisk, copies of Sarah and Thomas may still exist in private collections, in hidden trunks. Asterisk, in old estates. Asterisk, were destroyed long ago by people who knew the truth and were afraid of it. The photograph David inherited survived by accident, or perhaps asterisk because someone couldn't bring themselves to destroy the last piece of evidence. The network's protection. Asterisk, asterisk. And curtains of respectability. Asterisk, men like Pettin donated to police departments, sat on town councils, attended church, were seen as good men. Asterisk knew how to hide in plain sight. Detective Carrington wasn't just negligent. He was an accomplice. Friends with Pettin, business partner, social ally. The investigation wasn't sloppy. It was buried, hidden, smothered under cigars and handshakes. Asterisk. The truth was simple. Sarah and Thomas never had a chance. Not in a world where monsters wore suits. Not in a world where evil donated to the police. Not in a world where children disappeared and society turned away. Asterisk, for 133 years. Nobody spoke Sarah Mitchell's name. Asterisk, her case faded from memory, buried under new generations, new towns, new tragedies. But the photograph, that single, terrible photograph, found its way through time like something refusing to die. Asterisk, it survived because of one woman. Asterisk, and because she couldn't look at it. But she also couldn't destroy it. Asterisk, the housekeepers. Secret asterisk, when Harold Pettin died in 1903, his estate was left to his siblings. Servants and house staff were ordered to clean out his study, his private room. The room no one had ever entered without permission. Asterisk, one of those people was Pettin's longtime housekeeper. A woman whose name never appeared in public records, but whose actions made her one of the only heroes in this story. Asterisk, inside Pettin's locked study. She found a trunk of letters, coded correspondences, asterisk envelopes, addressed under false names, asterisk, and a box filled with photographs of children. Dozens of them. Children photographed in basements. Asterisk. Children photographed alone. Children photographed in restraints. Children photographed posed like Sarah and Thomas. Asterisk, some well-fed, some starving, some terrified, some emptied out. She didn't know the whole truth, but she knew enough. Her employer was a monster. Terrified and disgusted, she wanted to burn everything, cleanse the house of the evil she'd served unknowingly for decades. Asterisk, but then she saw one photograph that shook her, the image of Sarah, the girl whose disappearance had once filled the local papers, the girl whose mother died searching for answers, the girl no one ever found. And the housekeeper realized, asterisk, someone deserves to know what happened. Someone deserves to bury the child properly. So she kept that one photograph. Just one. The one showing Sarah and the unknown boy. She hid it away until the time felt right. Asterisk, how the photograph reached David's family. Asterisk. Dr. Morris traced the photo's chain of custody. It was remarkable, almost impossible. Asterisk, after Pettin's death. The housekeeper secretly contacted Martha Hendress, David's great-great-grandmother. Asterisk, why her? Because Martha had been Elizabeth Mitchell's closest friend. The two women had grown up together. They had watched each other's children grow, and when Sarah disappeared, Martha helped Elizabeth search until the day she died of grief. Asterisk, when the housekeeper confessed what she'd found. Martha understood immediately. Asterisk, this was the last image of Elizabeth's little girl. The only proof of what happened. The only evidence of the evil that stole her. The housekeeper told Martha, burn the rest, but keep this one. Asterisk, someone must remember her. Martha burned the trunk, burned the letters. Asterisk, burned the photographs of other children she didn't recognize. Burned the last remnants of the collector's trophies. But she couldn't burn Sarah. Asterisk. She couldn't bring herself to destroy the only proof of her friend's daughter's suffering. or the mysterious little boy who died with her. So Martha wrote the words that would survive more than a century. Asterisk, Sarah and Thomas. 1890. May God have mercy on their souls. No last names, no explanations, just grief. And she locked the photograph in a box. Along with the newspaper clippings she'd saved the year Sarah vanished, she told no one, not even her children. Some secrets were too dark to speak aloud. Asterisk. The box passes through generations. Asterisk. The photograph moved quietly from one generation to the next. From Martha to her daughter, who never opened the box. From that daughter to David's grandmother. Asterisk. From her to Aunt Margaret, and finally in 2023, to David himself. Each heir kept the box. Each heir preserved it, but none dared to open it. Asterisk. It was as if they sensed something awful lay inside, something meant to remain untouched. Asterisk. Aunt Margaret kept the box hidden in her attic for decades. Not displayed, not labeled. Asterisk. Not even mentioned. Just hidden, waiting, because the truth has a way of resurfacing when the time is right. Asterisk. Emily breaks the chain of silence. Asterisk. When David brought the photograph to Emily without knowing its history, the chain of silence finally snapped. Asterisk. For the first time in 133 years. Someone looked closely. Someone enhanced the shadows. Someone magnified the eyes. Someone peeled back the layers of time. And the photograph spoke loudly, violently, unmistakably. This wasn't genealogy. Asterisk. This wasn't ancestry. This was evidence. Evidence of two children who had cried in the dark. Asterisk. Evidence of a man who hid behind wealth and respectability. Asterisk. Evidence of a network that preyed on society's most vulnerable. Asterisk. And after all this time, someone finally listened. The photograph had survived for only one purpose: to tell the truth the world refused to see. And after 133 years, that truth was finally about to break open. Asterisk. For 133 years. The truth slept in a locked box. Asterisk. Sarah Mitchell's story had been buried under dust, lies, and the protective silence of a community that once chose reputation over righteousness. The world moved on. The people involved died. Evidence decayed. Names were forgotten. But the photograph refused to die. And in 2024, long after, every witness had turned to dust. The truth clawed its way back into daylight. The case reopens. Asterisk. When Emily Richardson and Dr. Catherine Morris submitted the restored photograph and their findings to authorities, the Vermont State Police Cold Case Unit initiated a formal historical review. Asterisk. They recognized at once. The restraints were real. The basement was real. Asterisk. The signs of torture were real. Asterisk. The threats reflected in Sarah's eyes were real. The image was not staged. It was criminal evidence, and the photographer was the abductor, even if the perpetrator had been dead for over a century. The case mattered, because truth matters, because children matter. Asterisk. Because stories like Sarah's deserve to breathe, even if the people responsible can no longer stand trial. Asterisk. Investigators began searching archives, private family collections, and forgotten estates for other possible photographs created by Petton or shared within his network. The search is still ongoing, but one thing became clear. Asterisk. The photograph Emily restored is the only known surviving image of Sarah Mitchell and the unknown boy who died with her. Asterisk. It is the only physical proof of what was done to them. The unknown boy. Asterisk. Historians and forensic experts attempted to identify the 5-year-old boy. No matching missing children were recorded. No family ever reported a boy fitting his description. Asterisk. No one ever came forward claiming a lost son. Asterisk. His body was buried under unknown child. Woodstock, 1890. Asterisk. He entered the world nameless. He left it nameless, and he remained nameless for more than a century. Asterisk. But now he has a place in memory, not as a statistic. Not as a forgotten victim, but as a child whose suffering finally came to light. He is no longer unknown. He is remembered. A memorial for two children. Asterisk. The Vermont Children's Memorial in Burlington added a new plaque in 2024. It reads, Sarah Mitchell, 1881 to 1890, and an unknown boy died with her. Victims of cruelty that hid behind respectability. Asterisk. May their suffering never be forgotten. People began leaving flowers beneath the plaque, small toys, notes written in children's handwriting. Candles. Prayers. Asterisk 2. Children who were erased in 890 had finally stepped back into history. The photograph's final home. Asterisk. The restored image was donated to the Vermont Historical Society, where it is now used as a teaching tool. A warning. Asterisk. A chapter in the darker side of Victorian America, an example of why evidence must never be ignored, a reminder that evil often hides behind politeness and reputation. Asterisk. Displayed behind protective glass, the photograph stands at a dimly lit hallway. Visitors see the terror in Sarah's eyes, the dissociation in the boy's face, the faint outline of chains, the child-sized world of suffering just behind them. People walk away shaken. Silent, because the image speaks, because the image remembers, because the image refuses to let the past be forgotten. Asterisk A. Quiet justice. There were no arrests. There was no courtroom scene. No prison sentence. Harold Petton died a respected man in 1903. Asterisk, but justice, real justice, is not always a verdict. Sometimes justice is truth uncovered. Asterisk, lies, exposed memory, restored silence. Broken. Asterisk, humanity reclaimed. Asterisk, for Sarah and the boy. Justice came 133 years late, but it came. Their story is no longer buried in an attic. Asterisk, their suffering is no longer hidden. Their final photograph is no longer a secret trophy of a predator. It is a testament, a memorial, a voice for children who never had the chance to speak. Epilogue. The photograph lives on. Asterisk. People often ask why the photograph survived when everything else was destroyed. Maybe Martha Hendricks couldn't burn the last memory of her friend's daughter. Maybe the housekeeper felt compelled to save at least one soul from the ashes of Petton's evil. Asterisk. Maybe something greater, something unseen, refused to let the story vanish. Because some truths refuse to stay buried. Some stories demand to be told. Asterisk. And some photographs carry a voice louder than a scream.